All right, welcome into another episode. It is finally the long-awaited NFL division winners. I got my trusty notebook right here. We're going to go through the NFC in today's episode, so make sure you guys stay tuned. You're listening to You Don't Know Jack. All right, let's begin today's episode. Thank you guys for joining me. We're going to start with the NFC North in today's video. Obviously, the big news, Micah Parsons being traded from Dallas to Green Bay. That's made news headlines everywhere, but we are actually going to be talking about the NFC North. I did just make a video on whether or not I thought the NFC North was the best division in football. Make sure you go give that a watch. Kind of dive in, and I kind of actually don't see the NFC North. Well, since that trade, my mind has flipped. I think this is the best division in football, but the records may surprise you. So let's start with those Green Bay Packers. They have actually a very tough schedule. Obviously, they play in a tough division, but they start week 1 against the Detroit Lions. Then they play the Washington Commanders, but then they have a back-to-back easy games, Browns and Cowboys, and then they follow that with the Bengals. So for me, I really believe in this team's offense. I think it's been very consistent, and the floor for this offense is actually very high. The real question is how high is their ceiling going to be? And I still think it'll be a decent offense, nothing crazy, but I do have them actually going on a little bit of a hot streak to begin the season, and then followed it up, kind of maintaining their success. I have them going 13-4 this season in the NFC North, which feels like a lot of wins for how tough that division is. I do think I have them sweeping the Bears. They split with the Lions. They sweep Minnesota. So they kind of control the division this year. And as we look at the rest of the division, Detroit, I have them taking a step back. Now, look, they lost some of their O-linemen. Obviously, they lost both offensive and defensive coordinators. It's going to be really interesting to see, how that team kind of rebounds after their crushing defeat in the divisional round last year. And overall, I just don't trust Detroit as much, but I love the talent on the team. I have them at a 10-7 record. I still think that is a big step for them. I believe they won 14 games last year. I do believe that they have a chance to stay healthier this year, which was a huge detriment to their season last year, and they are still able to be the first seed in the playoffs. If they can maintain their health this year, they should easily be able to exceed 10 wins. But just because I have a lot of faith in the Packers this year, I'm going to go with Detroit at 10-7. But Chicago is the most interesting team in this entire division. I've been flip-flopping on them. Do I like them? Do I trust them is the real key. And I do trust them, but I'm not fully bought it. So I have them at an 8-9 record, a clear improvement from the season prior. Not a winning record, but I do think they have the pieces in place to really excel the season after this one. And it's because they have two tough teams, Detroit and Green Bay, in which I do think the Bears will lose all 4 of those matchups, and yet they still win 8 games. I think that is very impressive. I think Caleb Williams will show signs of, true number 1 overall potential that we saw flashes of last season, but it was kind of underwhelming. So this year I think there'll be more consistency on offense, and their defense will be top 10. It's just whether or not I think they can beat some of the elite teams, and I just don't see that yet. But then we go to Minnesota, and I've actually watched tons and tons of videos on Minnesota this year. A lot of people have them in the middle of the pack. Some people have them winning the division, but I'm going to have to unfortunately fade them this year. I have them with 6 wins on the year. Real question mark is J.J. McCarthy. Right, a lot of people are like, if Sam Darnold was able to excel in this system, J.J. McCarthy will. And I want to agree with that. I do. But it's just, there's not a lot of proof there, right? If Jordan Addison's missing the first 3 games. If they get off to an 0-3 start, it's going to be hard for them to really climb out. And at the trade deadline, do they, try to get back to contend? I still think there's holes in that roster. A lot of people don't like the secondary, but under Brian Flores, the defensive coordinator there in Minnesota, he's made them play better than their skills have let them. I guess that's the word I want to go with. Their defense performs better than they should. And so for last year, a lot of people were kind of fading them. This year, I'm going to fade them going into the season. If I, eat my words, I eat my words. But Minnesota rounds off the NFC North with a 6-10 record. So to recap, I have Green Bay at 13-4, Detroit at 10-7, Chicago at 8-9, and Minnesota at 6-11. Thing is, this is still the best division in football. And if you were to tell me, J.J. McCarthy, was really good and the Minnesota Vikings won the division, I'd be like, you know what? Yeah, I could believe that. If you were telling me the Bears were to absolutely flunk again, I'd be like, that makes sense. But if you were to tell me, hey, the Lions didn't really take a step back, I'd be like, you know what? You're probably right. That makes a lot of sense as well. So a lot of possibilities could happen with the NFC North, but that's how I think it's going to play out. But now we transition to the NFC South. And I think this is the complete inverse of the NFC North. The NFC South, to me, is probably the worst division in football. I'm looking at it. I mean, it's close. I think it's close this year. There's a lot of bad divisions because a lot of the top elite teams kind of have to carry their divisions in terms of win total. But to start off with this division, I do have Tampa Bay winning 12 games. I do think they have easily the best roster in that division, the best offense, best defense, and I don't think it's fairly close, right? When you look at last year, Baker Mayfield obviously had a great year, even without Chris Godwin in the second half of the season. This year, they go in with a great rookie in Emeka Egbuka filling in for Chris Godwin. Even though he might be back by week 2, week 3, or even after week 4, I still think they'll be fine. And it's they have 6 games against these division opponents, and I think it's absolutely, theirs to win, like theirs to run away with, right? So when we look at the other teams, Atlanta, I have them at 7-10. I really want to like Atlanta, but I don't trust that offense. They have the skill, they have the players, but something about that offense I can't trust. It's Michael Penix, it's Kyle Pitts, Drake London. They have guys that have the skill, but really have the consistency. I don't think so. So that's why them at a 7-10 record. Then I have Carolina at 5-12. I really want to put Carolina a little bit higher. I do think they have potential to, really rise this season. However, I just think they're not quite there yet. Now again, 5 wins feels harsh because it's 5 wins, right? I think Bryce Young has improved. He showed flashes of that after, he was back in the starting lineup. But it's just tough for me to really understand Carolina right now. I like their defensive line, their secondary with J.C. Horn. If he can stay healthy, I think they can easily, exceed that 5 wins. But for the offense, I don't love it. Tyrell McMillan, he may work out there in Carolina, but rookie receivers always kind of have growing pains early on. And so if they get off to a slow start, they may have to, catch up before it's too late. And then we have the New Orleans Saints. I have them at a 2-15 record. A lot of people have been saying they're bad. I do think they're going to be bad. I struggled to actually find them wins on their schedule. I was like, they're not going to go 0-16. I just can't put them at 0-16 or 0-17. So I put them with 2 wins. I don't know where they're going to get those 2 wins. Maybe one against Carolina, in the Superdome. But for right now, I have them at 2-5 record, 2-15 record. And so, they don't really have a super elite team. I think Tampa Bay can make some noise in the postseason. But however, for the rest of the team, or rest of the division, it's kind of all mid teams. So then we go to the the NFC West. And this division, of years past used to be the best division in football, right? The 49ers used to remain kings over quality teams in the Rams and the Seahawks. But the division's changed a little bit. And so let's begin with the Arizona Cardinals. I'm higher on the Cardinals than most, but I still have them at an 8-9 record this season. Not good enough. I still think they're a year away, maybe from improving their offense a little bit. Who knows if Marvin Harrison Jr. is going to have a bounce back sophomore season? I'd love for him to. I think him and the Kyler Murray connection could be very fun to watch for the next couple of years. But we need to see the Cardinals actually utilize Marvin Harrison to his skill potential. They sent him a lot of go balls. No, get him to run routes. Get him in a CeeDee Lamb type role a little bit too. Move him around the field. Use all of his skills possible. But for right now, I have some growing pains for the Arizona Cardinals at an 8-9 record. Then we have the San Francisco 49ers. And a lot of people seem to kind of be forgetting about them. And, I don't want to be caught in that. So I have them at an 11-6 record. Now look, they have to play the Rams twice. They have to play the Seahawks twice. They're playing, if I take a look at their schedule, there's a lot of games on there that could really go the other way early on, especially without Brandon Ayuk as he tries to recover from an injury. But I think they'll be able to hold the fort down, right? They start the year off with Seattle. Then they play New Orleans, play Arizona, then Jacksonville, then the Rams, then the Bucks. Right? But after that Bucks game, they play the Falcons, Texans, 49ers, and then back with the Rams. So I think that first half of the schedule is going to be a little tough. It'll really set the tone for the back half. But if they can really get their feet under them and maintain health, and guys like Brandon Ayuk, Christian McCaffrey, they could be actually pretty good. Their defense will be solid. Robert Saleh comes back, right? If you can maintain Christian McCaffrey's health, the offense will somewhat be there. And so that's why I have them at the 11-6 record, tied with the Los Angeles Rams in the division with an 11-6 record. Really like the Rams offense. Their defense was solid last year. It'll be solid this year. They made some moves on the offensive side, getting Devontae Adams. I think that'll help Matthew Stafford. Obviously, his health has been in question this year. But let's slow down on that. I think he'll be okay. The back doesn't seem to be an issue. And so I still like the Rams this year with Sean McVay. 11-6 feels solid, especially with, they could drop a game or two against divisional opponents, and including they are playing a first-place schedule against, the Eagles, against the Tampa Bay Bucks. They could drop those games as well. So then to finish it off, we have the Seattle Seahawks. I have them at 6-11 record. I feel like that's just right for them. I don't feel like I could give them any more wins on their schedule, but I feel like the wins they get, they'll earn, if that makes sense. Because Sam Darnold is the new quarterback over there. They traded away DK Metcalf. They have JSN, and they also have Cooper Kupp, a newly acquired wide receiver. Their offense feels jumbled together. It doesn't feel coherent, right? With Sam Darnold in Minnesota, their offense was very steady. Jordan Addison, Justin Jefferson, two great wide receivers for him. The running game was not terrible with, Aaron Jones back there. But for Seattle, they're probably going to be a run-heavy team with Zach Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker III. And so will JSN do that breakout role? If JSN has a great year, they will have way more wins in their schedule. But for right now, I'm kind of limiting them because of the Sam Darnold effect. And that's why I have them at a 6-11 record. So to recap, in the in the NFC West, I have the Arizona Cardinals, San Francisco 49ers. I have the Arizona Cardinals at 8-9. At San Francisco, I have 11-6. Los Angeles Rams, I have 11-6. And Seattle Seahawks, I have at 6-11. Then we get to our final division of today's episode, and that's the NFC East. Obviously, you can tell I'm a Cowboys fan, but I feel like it's the easiest division to pick which teams will be good and which teams will be bad. Right, so let's start with the first good team guaranteed. That'll be the Philadelphia Eagles. I have them at actually an 11-6 record because they play a brutal schedule. I believe they play the Bills and the Chiefs and a first place schedule on top of that. So they have some tough ball games. I do think, one of those losses could come in week 18, final week of the season. Not really trying. But I could be sleeping on that. They probably will get around 11 to 13 wins this season, just based off the division. And so I really like Philly, offensively, defensively. They're a solid team. You can rave all you want about them. They're going to be good. They're going to be good. And they have, 4 games against really bad teams. The first bad team is the Dallas Cowboys. I have them at a 5-12 record. Yes, you heard that right. I have the Dallas Cowboys at a 5-12 record this year. It's not going to be pretty, right? The offense, I think, will actually put up numbers. I trust this offense, but I don't trust the defense at all. Like, they're going to be one of the worst defenses in the league. And then you don't know if you have a run game. So if you're always passing, right, and you can never really gain control of the football game, you're not going to win. And so I do have them sweeping the Giants this year, and then winning a couple other ball games, but 5-12, it's a down year. Trade the players you can and rebuild. But another good team in this division is the Washington Commanders. Obviously, they're a year removed from their NFC Championship appearance. I have them at a 10-7 record. The offense will be great. I really like the offense. The running back is a little questionable, but their defense is where I have them as a limitation, and that's why I have them at a 10-7 record. The more I think about it, the more I'm actually going to switch some of my playoff picture at the end. However, Washington at 10-7, their offense will be good enough, like I said. And so it's really going to be interesting for Washington in their contender status is if their defense is going to be good enough. Because you look at that defense, it's a very old head defense. They signed Von Miller. They got Bobby Wagner back there, right? Marshawn Lattimore after a midseason trade last year. Their defense is, somewhat old. Now, So, that's why I'm kind of hesitant on them. And so that's why I have the Washington Commanders at 10-7. And then to finish it off, I have the New York Giants at a 4-13 record. 4-13. Another down year for the Giants. I really like their defense. Like, their defense has the potential to be top 10. It does, right? And maybe with Russell Wilson, that brings up your floor, definitely lowers your ceiling, but their ceiling isn't that high to begin with. And so for the Giants, I think this year is really a year to show some offensive promise in some of your guys, right? In maybe a Cam Scattaboo, right? Jalen Hyatt, right? Maybe we see Jackson Dart play sometime this season. It's a weird year for New York because it's like we want to win, right? Brian Daboll, it feels like he's on the hot seat. So are we going to see, that translate to wins? I don't think so, especially with how the division is. You're going to lose twice to Philly. You're going to lose twice to Washington. You're going to lose twice to Dallas. I feel like that's almost a given. I'd be shocked if it was the other way around. I'd be really disappointed. But yes, so to conclude, the East goes as Philly with an 11-6 record, Dallas with a 5-12 record, Washington with a 10-7 record, and the New York Giants with a 4-13 record. So what does this translate to? What is my prediction for the NFC? Well, you'll have to wait till Friday for my Super Bowl predictions and my award predictions. But the NFC playoff picture, due to my rankings, would look like this. The first seed would go to Green Bay, again, with that 13-4 record. Then they'd be followed in the 2 seed by the division winner of the NFC. I keep saying AFC. NFC South in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And then the 3rd seed goes to the Philadelphia Eagles. 4th seed goes to the Los Angeles Rams. I think they get it over the 49ers, both with the same record. But then the 5th seed goes to the San Francisco 49ers. And this is where I could be a little flipped. I do think the 6th seed and the 7th seed obviously tied with record Washington, Detroit. I feel like Detroit is a better team than Washington this year. But just because of records, I have Detroit at 7. So, let me know what your guys' thoughts are on the playoff picture. I'll say it in order again. It goes Green Bay, Tampa, Philadelphia, Los Angeles, San Francisco, Washington, and Detroit. So that'll conclude my NFC division winners. Let me know your guys' thoughts in the comments below. Make sure to follow because I'll be here again on Wednesday doing my AFC division winners. And then on Friday, I'll give my Super Bowl pick, my award winners, and all that jazz. So thank you guys again for joining me for another episode of You Don't Know Jack. I'm Jackson James. I'll catch you guys in the next one.